Well, isn't Great Britain a bit of a basket case at the moment? They still haven't come up with a replacement for outgoing PM Boris Johnson. That process has not wound up, although apparently all will be revealed on Tuesday morning our time. Meanwhile, the UK is facing a colossal power crisis with blackouts and widespread fuel poverty creating a very difficult upcoming winter. With the UK relying on gas to heat 80% of all households and the supply of gas reaching emergency levels, as we know, across Europe, power bills have tripled and are predicted to go even higher. All those net zero promises by 2050 seem rather irrelevant at the moment. Joining me now live from London is former Brexiteer and now broadcaster Nigel Farage, who'll arrive in Australia later this month. Nigel, I hope you're planning to stay in Australia for the British winter. I can only imagine how cold it's going to get when the gas runs out.
Well, you're right. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, that for a first world country, today's Sunday newspapers are full of whether we're going to have energy rationing or whether, if we do get a very cold winter in February, literally the lights could go out, which means no heating. It'll mean basically life will come to a stop and tens of thousands will die of cold. And all of this because 20 years ago, we passed a Climate Change Act. We updated it with this massive commitment to net zero. What it means to sort of meet those targets, what you have to do is close down your manufacturing, let all that go to India and China, because that reduces your CO2 output. And then with energy, build lots and lots of windmills, tax the poor, put loads of subsidies on their bills, give it to the rich, give it to the multinationals, and don't produce your own gas. Don't produce your own coal. Don't produce enough of your own oil. That is the mess that we've got into. And the extraordinary thing is, you'd have thought this was all hard left socialist stuff. No, it's the British Conservative Party.
Yep.
It's Boris Johnson and others that have pushed this really, really hard. And anyone that dares to stand up and say, hang on a second, what are we doing? Well, we are called deniers. It's the modern day equivalent of being accused of witchcraft. That's the mess we're in, and you guys should avoid it.
Yeah, this is a big lesson to all of Australia. And so we've just had an election after which the left claimed victory in the climate wars. Everyone gravitated towards the independent, pushing extreme views on climate zeros and cars, petrol cars to be thrown out by 2030, all of that stuff. But the truth is, Nigel, Russia and a lack of baseload power across the world has changed this green religion incredibly. We're seeing it in Britain. A lot has changed since then. And those that are claiming victory in the climate wars need to think very seriously about whether they're happy to live a very primitive existence.
Yes, I mean, basically what you're talking about is not having a motor car, not getting on an aeroplane to go on a foreign holiday. You're talking about diminishing living standards. I mean, that's actually what they want. And,
Yep.
oh, by the way, you've got to stop eating beef, stop eating lamb. I mean, the whole thing's unbelievable, but that's what they're pushing. Now, I think once we have a proper debate about this, the settled majority will be there for common sense. And yes, Putin has now put the squeeze on and has announced in the last 48 hours that the Nord Stream 1 pipeline that goes into Germany will not be reopening. So Putin has frankly got the West by the short and curlies, and the West very stupidly doesn't produce its own energy. Some countries can't. We in the UK have gas reserves estimated to be worth $1 trillion, $1 trillion, and we haven't as yet extracted a single barrel. So here's the problem. We get a new Prime Minister in the next 2 days. It's going to be Liz Truss, I've no doubt. Even if she says, right, I get it, let's become energy independent, it'll take a couple of years to get there. So goodness knows what happens between now and then.
What a terrible, horrendous 2 years you'll face. Do you think, though, she's heading in that direction? Has the penny dropped for Liz Truss?
Well, she says she's still committed to net zero. But we must produce more of our own energy. It's at least a step in the right direction. All that Boris Johnson recommends is that we all buy a new kettle because it'll use less electricity and save us 10 quid a year. What a legacy for a British Prime Minister. Let's see. I am certain there'll be very, very strong pressures within Westminster within Whitehall, within number 10, to try and stop her going for genuine energy exploration. But I think if enough of us, as commentators, broadcasters, politicians and newspapers, if enough of us shout loudly, I think something will get done. Whether it'll be enough remains to be seen.
Yeah, it has to. Now, you'll be here in 3 weeks' time and holding your entertaining evening with Nigel Farage events in Melbourne, September 26th, the Monday, in Sydney on Tuesday, the 27th of September, and in Brisbane, Thursday, the 29th of September. You're obviously going to talk about the similarities between the Conservative parties in Britain and Australia, because it's stark, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in fact, right across the English-speaking world, we face the same challenges, we face the same problems, and kind of, the capital cities seem to infect the brains of so-called conservative politicians. They all seem to move to the left. They all seem to move to the centre. They all seem to become Labour light, and then they're surprised when they lose elections. And the lesson I've learned, certainly from the Conservative Party, when I kicked them hard again and again and again, and in 2019, they actually stood on a genuine Conservative manifesto, and guess what? They got the biggest majority since Margaret Thatcher. And the same applies in Australia, the same applies elsewhere. It's no good being Labour-like. If you're Conservative, be Conservative. Reduce the size of the state. Give people incentives to set up their own businesses. Get the dead hand of government off the backs of people. And that's what needs to be done. And, look at the lockdowns. Look at what Australian people were made to go through. Now, I know a lot of this was the fault, of course, of the local states, but actually, did Scott Morrison stand up for liberty during the pandemic? Well, I think we know the answer.
One quick one. What do you think Boris Johnson will do now? Not that you'd probably care, but what will he do?
Oh, he'll be in America. He'll be in America. I mean, look, whatever his flaws, he is actually rather fun. He is entertaining.
Yeah.
And after a few glasses of wine, he gives a very good after-dinner speech. He will go and he will make millions. He will entertain and amuse people. And then he may consider a comeback, because I think the British Conservatives, unless Truss can really turn this around, they're heading for an absolute walloping at the next general election. And who knows, Boris may try to come back.
We'll see you soon down under. Nigel Farage, thank you very much for your time. All right, tickets for an evening with Nigel Farage start at $89, and all details are on the website nigelive.com.au, nigelive.com.au.